Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Ballabha Giribharadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunati Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Grantara Shiman Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh glory to the assembled devotees. Oh glory to the assembled devotees. Oh glory to the assembled devotees. Oh glory to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 69, Narada visits Dwarka, text number 24. Juvantam cha vitanatning jayantam panchibir mukhai bojayantam dvijan kwapi bunjanan abhisheshitam. Juvantam cha vitanagnim jayantam panchabir makai bojayantam dvijam kapi bunjanan abhasheshitam. Juvantam cha vitagnatkim nagnim jayantam panchabir makai bhojayantam dvijan kwapi bunjanan avasheshitam. Please chant. Juvantam cha vitanagnim Jayantam panchabir makhai Bojayantam dvijan kwapi Bunjanan avasheshitam Juvantam, offering oblations, cha jai shishikishor kishor, and bitana agnim, to the sacrificial fires, jajantam, worshipping, panchabihi, five, makai, with the obligatory rituals, bojajantam, feeding, dwijam, brahmanas, qua api, somewhere, bunjanam, eating, abhasheshitam, remnants, translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Shishikishor Kishor. In one place, the Lord was offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. In another, worshipping through the five Mahajagnyas. In another, feeding Brahmanas. And in yet another, eating the remnants of the food left by Brahmanas. Purport. The five Mahajagyas or great sacrifices are defined as follows. Pato homas chatitinam saparya tarpanam balihi. Quote, reciting the Vedas, offering oblations into the sacrificial fire, waiting on guests, making offerings to the forefathers, and offering a share of one foods to living entities in general. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows on these sacrifices. Quote, in another palace, Krishna was found performing the Pancha Jagya sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. The Jagya is also known as Pancha Suna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, specifically the householder, is committing five kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or take foodstuff, we kill many germs. When sweeping the floor or igniting a fire, we kill many germs. When we walk on the street, we kill many ants and other insects, consciously or unconsciously. In all our different activities, we're killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Panchasuna sacrifice to rid himself of the reaction to such sinful activities. End of quote. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his commentary on this verse, again points out that all the different times of the day were occurring simultaneously in Lord Krishna's palace. Thus Narada saw a fire sacrifice, a morning ritual, and about the same time he saw Lord Krishna feeding the Brahmanas and accepting the remnants, a noontime activity. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Shrimate Brahmapada Swami. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Shatarine. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasinubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, it's basically a whole chapter is focused on explaining um, the importance of a person who holds responsibility or is in a position of leadership, how one should act accordingly to set an example. And part of setting that example is to make sure that you uphold the principles that are um, prescribed for human beings to perform in this lifetime. Those principles are called dharma. So the principles of dharma are to be upheld by all human beings, but especially important is for those who are in leadership. And Krishna emphasized that to Arjuna. First of all, he established that for human beings, there's a system. That system is the process of religion. And specifically, that system explains that is what is called a system of yajna, sacrifices. Sacrifices means that one acts in such a way that whatever one's do, whatever actions one's do, is supposed to be offered in sacrifice for the pleasure of the personality of Godhead. The Yajna Artha, or the beneficiary of all Yagyas, the Yagyeshwara, or the uh, the enjoyer of all Yagyas. So that is the personality of God. So Krishna established, this is chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. And in the chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is still dealing with the doubts of what is the right thing for him to do to uphold the principles of religion. What is his duty? And so Krishna goes on to explain, first of all, that one have to have a proper understanding that the performance of duty is not for personal, is not for something to do with my personal interest, but my performance of duty is for the pleasure of the personality of God. And when that duty is performed like that, then one is free from the entanglement of reactions, actions, and reactions. So that's a system that Krishna established his plane from the beginning of the creation. He got a whole system in which there is demigods and human beings in which this system take place, and within that system, then human beings can exist in a very harmonious and happy manner throughout the whole life. Everything that one may require to live happily and harmoniously in this life will be provided as long as one follows this system of yajna, prescribed yajna. And then not only that, Lord Krishna assures Arjuna that not only you will have everything desirable in this lifetime, but at the end of life, you actually can elevate yourself and qualify to become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. The whole arrangement of following the principles of Jagya or the system of Jagya is that when done properly for the pleasure of the personality of Godhead, then one becomes free from any type of not only sinful reactions, but even the reactions that comes out of piety. One becomes transcendental to all these reactions. So there is no entanglement. So um, Krishna goes on to explain the whole chapter is breaking this down, the important, the understanding of the system itself, the system of Jagya. And he explains that with the performance of Jagyas, devotees are released from all kinds of sins. Now, we are hearing here that just by common acting, especially for householders, that you have to maintain a space. You have to cook, you have to clean, you have to just move around, breathe, drink, just the common activities of bodily sustenance. One is committing sinful activities knowingly or unknowingly. Within a space, there's creatures that comes, all kinds of living entities that are there. Sometimes, these living entities are qualified as pests. So you may have, an infestations of roaches or bed bugs or things like that. So you may be engaged in all kinds of activities that causes the death of these other living entities. What to speak of, as is explained here, that um, you walk in the street and without knowing, you step on one of those creatures, an ant or a little insect, and you kill. It is explained that by breathing, you're killing. You're killing. So just by existing, we are committing all kinds of violent acts. So when there is killing and when there is violence, there's a reaction. It's a sinful reaction. It's a sinful reaction that we have to be accounted for. There was the story of a sage that in when he was a child, in a playful manner, he killed an insect with a stick, with a pin. You know, an unconscious child, just playing a game, and then you kill a creature. Much later, at the end of his life, he leaves his body, as a sage. The child became a sage, and at the end of his life, so he lived a life of righteousness and saintly, behavior throughout his life. But at the end of his life, he finds himself in front of Yamaraj, and Yamaraj, uh, actually, I think he was killed by a spear. He was killed in a violent manner. I can't remember if it was from the dacoits or something like that. But when he faced Yamaraj, he questioned Yamaraj, and Yamaraj explained that you committed the sinful act when you were a child. And the sage was not very pleased. He thought it was an unjust judgment. And just on the plea that the child was an ignorant child and the punishment was not in accordance to the crime. So he cursed Yamaraj to become a Sudra, and Yamaraj became Vidura. But the point is that all these different acts of violence that we may commit consciously or consciously, they we are accountable for. So therefore, it is explained that this type of yagyas that are prescribed are compulsory. Uh, in the seventh, let me see, where is it? Yeah, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains this Panchasuna. Panchasuna means the five violent acts. And the Panchajagya is to counteract those five violent acts. So what is those five violent acts that we may be incurred while living our life, regular life? This is in the Vishnu Smriti. And these are the five. The Grihasta does not enjoy Swarga by commission of the five violent actions towards other living entities. Cause, so here's one, using the mortar. So Prabhupada break it down in the Krishna book. So when you grind it using the mortar, the mortar is, when you smash the spices or grains, especially for grains. So then whatever germs, living entities may be there, you're killing with the mortar. With the grinder, you're killing. That's another one. Grinding stone. The stove, when we light the fire, that's number three. The broom, when we're sweeping, sometimes you're sweeping. The other day I was cleaning my spiritual master space and I was with the vacuum, and as I was vacuuming, a spider just went whoosh, finish, kill the spider. So when you're cleaning with the broom or with whatever technology you use to clean, very easily you're killing all kinds of creatures. And you try not to, but you're you're cleaning like that. And the water pot. These are so simple, mundane type of things. I mean, we may think, like you're a hunter, and so you're killing. No, no, no. By just in your kitchen grinding spices, you're killing. By drinking, pouring water in your cup and drinking, you're killing. These are the things this is a panchasuna. So it's such a something that we just don't think about. It's unconsciously. And that creates sinful activities. And we do that every day. Imagine a whole life of accumulation of all those things. So you have to perform in a obligatory manner this panchajagya. And what is this panchajagya again? It was it was it was broke down as reciting the Vedas. So right now we're doing one of the panchajagyas. We recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we recite the scriptures, offering oblations into the sacrificial fire, and that we don't usually do, you know, rarely. It's not something that we do on a daily basis. Waiting on guests, making offering to the forefathers, and offering a share of one food to living entities in general. So these are things that Grihastas in a Vedic culture does regularly. It is explained, Srila Prabhupada explained, that in this particular age, the sacrifices that are prescribed is very difficult to follow. The one thing is that we don't have the support and the basis of a Vedic culture. We don't have a Vanashram institution that rules and structures society. So for this age, the chanting of the holy name has been prescribed. So the Sankirtan Yagya is the Yagya that covers all these different Vedic sacrifice. Explain. The Sankirtan Yagya. Prabhupada in his purport to um, to the verse, maybe I should read that, which is very wonderful. Let me see here. The verse is number 10, 310. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sends forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifice for Vishnu, and bless them by saying, "Be thou happy by this Yagya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." So, Prabhupada says, by performance of Yagya, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan Yagya, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures. And this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtan Yagya and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:5-32 as follows, with a special reference of to the Sankirtan Yagya, the famous Krishna Varnan Tusha Krishnam. In this age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtan Yagya. So here's Prabhupada making this point very clear. Other yagyas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in the age of Kali. But the Sankirtan Yagya is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita also 9:14. In 9:14 is that always chanting the holy names. What is it? That the devotees of the Lord are, or the devotees, the Mahatmana, how do you go? Mahatmana, I can't remember. You looking for it? Remind me. Mahatmanas. Satatan kirtayantuman yatatas. Always chanting my glories. Always chanting. These Mahatmas always chant the glories of the Lord constantly. So this is the type of yajna. So we have to perform yajnas. Yajnas are the prescribed system of religion that is given by the personality of God. For us, it's a principle. It's a principle by the performing of yajna for the pleasure of the Lord. We can go through life without being free from all these reactions and these entanglements. So Krishna becomes an example of that. So the question is here, which is the actual thing that is so mysterious and fascinating that, and becomes a great mystery. Yesterday in the class we heard about the reactions of Narada Muni. Stunned. He couldn't say anything. And he was so intrigued by, observing Krishna, the personality of Godhead, the supreme controller, performing all these mundane activities, activities that are meant for man in this world. So these human-like activities for performing all these type of things that appear to be mundane. There is a very beautiful verse that is quoted um, of Uddhava explaining this very same point of observing Krishna doing things that are apparently mundane and wonder about, how wonderful is that here is Krishna, and then, he does these things that it doesn't fit his supremacy and his position. He said, Uddhava, this is actually quoted in the Nectar of Devotion. Uddhava has described the transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna as follows. Quote, Lord Sri Krishna, who is our master and worshipable deity, who is the controller of Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, the controller of the whole universe as well, accepts the controlling orders of Ugrasena, his grandfather. He is the proprietor of millions of universes, but still he begged a little land from the ocean. This is referring when Krishna wants to build Dwarka, he's asking the ocean to provide a tract of land so Dwarka can be built. And also, he's just like an ocean of wisdom. Still, he sometimes consults me. He is so great and magnanimous, yet he is engaged in his different activities just like an ordinary person. So, why does he do that? What is the need for him to do that? There's no need. He explains all that in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, the breakdown of all uh, that chapter. He explains, my dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in the human life the cycle of yajna, or sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. But one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So here's, just pay attention to this, because it's saying that for those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness, self-realized, there's no duty, but still, they will perform their duty. And then he gives the example of King Janaka. A self-realized man have no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason, nor has he any reasons not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one obtains the supreme. This is a theme of the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is designed for people like most of us who are very much invested in this material world. And then for most of us who are still afflicted or conditioned in the material world, the path for liberation is this very, very path that Krishna described here. That working without attachment. So one have to develop that. One have to act, or one have to come to the position of acting without being attached to the fruits. The karma dieva the principle is a theme that is constantly being highlighted by Krishna throughout the first 6 chapters of the Gita. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by the performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Remember, Arjuna wanted to give up his work, and Krishna is emphasizing for him, no, you should perform your duties. You just use you become detached of the fruits, because the fruits are for whom pleasure? For whose pleasure? For the pleasure of Vishnu. So these have to be offered. When you learn this system, then you're free from sinful reactions. Remember, Arjuna wanted to stop acting because he was afraid. He was afraid of reactions that killing in that war, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was going to bring to him. So he gave, several reasons why not to fight. One of them is where he was going to cause such a calamity, he was going to destroy society by populating society with unwanted progenies, Varna Shamskara. And he, by killing also, so he was going to ruin society, because the heads of society were going to be gone, and then all the different activities of sacrifice, the process of yagyas will stop in society. So he was very much afraid of sinful reactions. By acting, so he wanted to stop acting. And Krishna says, no, you act, but you act understanding this principle of, is called Nishkam Karma Yoga. for the pleasure of the personality of Godhead. So you should do like King Janaka, and then the the famous verse Jat Jat Acharati Shrestas Tat Tat Eva Taro Jana Sajat Pramanan Kurute Lokas Tat Anuvartate, that whatever actions a great man performs, common man follow, and whatever standards is set by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So the great, great responsibility that persons in leadership have to set the proper example by performing duties. Now, Krishna explains that he is the leader of all men. Krishna is the top. So he says to Arjuna that for him, there is no, he is aloof. He is transcendental. So for him, there's no duties to perform. In the three planetary systems, nor Krishna desires anything. He doesn't have attachments, he doesn't have desires, he doesn't have a need. Everything comes from him. And this is what Uddhava is expressing in his prayers, and this is what Narada Muni is observing in great astonishment. That although Krishna is transcendental to all that and he doesn't have to engage, yet, Krishna say, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. He does it. He doesn't have, but he do it. Why? Then he goes on to explain. For if I fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties of Partha, certainly all men will follow my path. If I did not perform prescribed duties, and this is quite a twist, because you remember in the first chapter, Arjuna says about that if he engages in the battlefield, he will put the whole world will go to ruin it. It will be ruined. And there will be Varna Shankara. And Krishna in this verse say that if he, Krishna, doesn't perform prescribed duties, although he doesn't have to, but if he doesn't do it, then this is what is going to happen. And it's a complete, he twisted for Arjuna. He says, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds will be put to ruination. I will be the cause of creating unwanted population and will thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Exactly what Arjuna was afraid of, by which he was trying to stop acting. Krishna is saying, if I don't act according to prescribed duties, this is exactly what is going to happen. What to speak of yourself, who are in the position of a king, of a kshatriya, whose duty is to protect society. So you must fight. So Krishna does that. Krishna performs these activities because he have to set these examples for all to follow. So as a kshatriya, as a king, as a warrior that is in the Mathura and Dwarka Leelas of the Lord is him setting these perfect examples. In his Vrindavan Leela, Krishna breaks all the rules. It's a different thing. He's a cowherd boy. But as a leader of society, Krishna sets a perfect example. I stop here. Any comments or questions?
Thank you for your class, Prabhuji. Um, there was one verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I lost it, but it speaks about how if we listen to the Bhagavad Gita, the sinful reactions are destroyed from listening to the Bhagavad Gita. Um, I can't think of really of it. Okay, so there's a difference based on psychophysical nature of person's duties, um, where, like, say, Lord Chaitanya at one point gave specific samples or examples of one who was in the sannyas order, wearing the saffron, and then this example of Arjuna as a Kshatriya warrior um, was a kind of different um, set of duties that he had. So I was wondering if you could maybe explain a little bit about what is the difference between the um, like say household ashram is completely pure when it's done a certain way, and the Vanaprastha and sannyas order, there's a difference between the two. So when one puts on saffron, what is the duty of a person that's different than the grihastha ashram? What is the difference?
The, in the sixth chapter of the Gita, uh, Krishna makes this differentiation between renunciation of the world or karma sannyas, when you actually detach and renounce the world, and being still invested into the world. So when one is a grihasta, is because there is a propensity or there is a need of still have some sort of a control in the world. There's certain type of investment. Of course, that's in general. That doesn't include Mahabhagavat devotees who go through the Grihastha ashrams, such as the great Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. That's a different thing. You know, that's not a regular, that's just a very unique personality. But in general, um, there is the term that is used is yoga ruruksha and yoga and what is it, ruruksha and try to remember. It's explained in the sixth chapter. Tell you in a moment. Ruruksha and ruk. There's two terms that is used. I'm a little sleepy, so One is when you are advanced in yoga, and when the other one is that you still sort of beginner. I have to look it afterwards. So in the beginning stages of yoga, you still have an investment. You still have desires, and you still have attachments. So because that investment is there, then the path of acting in devotion is recommended. That's the path for us. So that's when it comes, your nature. According to your nature, you engage and all that. So a Kshatriya will be engaged in the administration, a Vaishya will engage in this way, a Brahmana will engage in this way, a Sudra like that. When you're free, there's absolutely no trace of attachments and desires, then sannyas you can actually take to renunciation. So both the path of working in devotion will lead you to renunciation as you advance in the process. It will naturally happen. In the Srimad Bhagavatam is explained, Vasudeva Bhagavati, eh, that in that verse, I can't remember the Sanskrit at this moment, but renunciation and knowledge becomes, immediately develop as one start to go through the process of uh, loving devotional service to the personality of God. So when one becomes free, then renunciation. If you're not free, then working on devotion. And that's again is a theme of the Bhagavad Gita because is is for us who is still afflicted by the material nature in some way. So then acting in devotion is a process. And that's the difference. So if you put saffron and you practicing renunciation, then especially when you go to Vanaprastha means that you basically finishing with the remnants of connections to the world. And sannyas is when you actually renounce the world. So if you take sannyas and you still have some attachments, then it becomes a problem. What is the term that is used? There's some I can also remember, but there's a play of words. There's sannyas and there's something else that translate that is very similar sounding, but it translates as vomit. Vomit. So if one is a sannyas that is still maintaining some material attachment, it's like vomit. That's what Prabhupada explained. And so yeah, does that address what you are? Anyway.
So this point that Lord Krishna is in the position of, well, of course, he's in the supreme position, and in the Dwarka situation, he's functioning as a king. So, the point you were making that, he's stating himself in Bhagavad Gita that uh, he's setting an example that all common men will follow. So, um, those activities that seem so ordinary, he is actually setting an example, because you do have to pet your children and you do have to take a bath.
Yeah. Well,
and you do have
he.
to, feed the brahmanas, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you do have to offer something of your food stuff to living entities in general. So, um, in fact, none of it is ordinary, really.
Right.
That's
Right.
what I was just thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. That is explained. That whole panchajagya is all that is the sacrifices, the worship, the taking care of guests. Things that happens daily in you know social life. And then in the Gita, in the 6th chapter, he says you have to, in order to do properly yoga and to, go through the process of yoga, you have to have this balance uh, um, approach to very mundane things: eating, sleeping, working, and recreation. So he shows that. There he is playing chess, recreation. There he is doing his duty as a parent. There he is, doing his work by doing sacrifices and feeding brahmanas and taking care of people and, like that. So it's, it's just part of how to live life. This is example, even in this ordinary thing, how you go on living life in a perfectly righteous and religious way. And that's example that we need, because otherwise, you are fully unconscious of everything. You're just killing this and that, and then, you never think about it. So, yeah. All right. So let's stop here.